All right, welcome to 15-Minute Mastery. Today's April the 15th, and this is our fourth installment of the 15-Minute Mastery um, short break for lunchtime. It's a chance to, take a break in your routine to gain some clarity about where you are in life in relation to where you want to be and strategies on how to get you to where you want to be. And this content that is shared and discussed is just wisdom that I've gathered along my decade of health and life coaching and relationship coaching, and of course, my own personal experience. So really quickly to review our past episodes, we have the X factor, the trait that divides people into lives lived on purpose and lives lived with regret. The recipe for transformation, the definition of self in self-care. That's what we spoke about last time. What self are we talking about when we're talking about self-care? And today's 15-minute mastery tip is gaining awareness of the multiverse, to use a very pop culture phrase. So the multiverse being the inner world of yourself and other people's inner world. So if you think of your inner world being the aggregate of your thoughts and your feelings, it's both. A lot of people think it's just thoughts, but it's your subjective experience of life is your thoughts and your feelings. And then everybody else has their own universe inside of them, right? And if we can be more aware of our own, then we can also become more aware or more intuitive about other people's little universes so that we're not living in these separate universes. We're actually communicating and communing, which is related to the word union. Sorry, my trash truck is going by and it's quite loud.
You barely hear it.
Oh, really? Okay. Which is related to the word union, right? So instead of being separate in our separate universes, we can come to find some common ground in our subjective experiences and really unify. So how do we become more aware of our little universe? Well, first of all, we have to be willing to just observe it without judgment. A lot of people don't want to go into their inner universe because they're using what they find as data or evidence to make a decision about whether I'm good or whether I'm bad. And if they find something that they don't like and they give into the temptation to believe this means I'm a bad person, then that's too hard for the ego to even confront. Okay. And so it's too dangerous. I'm not going to go into that universe anymore. I'm going to stay out of that. And then we live these unconscious, unexamined lives. Okay. But if we're willing to resist that temptation to label and put people into these tidy boxes of good person, bad person, and just say they're just people, then we're going to say, I'm just a person too. I'm not a good person. I'm not a bad person. I'm just a person. And I'm all the things. And a lot of people, when they go into their inner lives, they find some really scary thoughts. They find some very startling thoughts even, right? When you really look in, and the people who are the most courageous people on earth is the people who share those startling thoughts with other people. The ones that they didn't act on, right? But it's still a startling thought. And people, when they find those startling thoughts, they think that means that they're bad. I think they think that means that they're a sinner or that they're going to hell or something like that, right? And of course, that would be so startling that no one would want to venture into the neighborhood of the inner universe again. And so they'll stay out of it. So we have to be willing to resist the temptation to find those startling, very unsavory, bitter, petty parts of ourselves and not decide to label ourselves as a bad person because we have thoughts that are a little bit startling. Because not just us, but every person we meet is the aggregate of all the different ways that they show up in the world. They're not all good and they're not all bad. It just depends on the day and their mood and how much sleep they've had and their blood sugar and their hormonal status. It's just really short-sighted to have that black and white thinking of, and it's lazy thinking really, of trying to put people in, oh, this is a good person because I experienced one little snapshot of them showing up in a way that is healthy for themselves and the planet. And I'm going to decide that they're good. And then I got this one snapshot of this other person, and they showed up in a way that's destructive to self and other. And I'm going to decide they're a bad person. We have to really resist that temptation to do that. And one of my favorite movies that really exemplifies this concept that I'm talking about, and it is my favorite movie of all time, is called Crash. I don't know if you've seen it. It won Best Picture in 2004, and it was well deserved. And I've seen it many times, and I still love it every single time I watch it. But if you're interested in really getting a very good story depiction of this concept, watch the movie Crash, because it shows that all those multifaceted parts of people, that sometimes we make good decisions and sometimes we make bad decisions. So when we're going into our inner life, in order to connect ourselves with where we want to be, we have to be aware of our inner life. We have to be aware and be willing to be aware of our thoughts and our feelings without judging them and condemning them as I'm a bad person, so that we can objectively look at those things that are happening inside of us and seeing how our inner life is causing our outer life or creating our outer life. And in that way, we can truly take control and take responsibility for our experiences on the outer.
I'm just taking notes. Keep talking.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to overwhelm. I don't want to give too much information, because this is a big concept. So becoming aware of our thoughts means that we're going to reflect on something that happened that we didn't like, or that we did like, just something that happened, and go, okay, why did this happen? And we have to be honest. That goes back to the recipe of the 2 ways of transformation. We have to be willing to be honest with ourselves. Why did this happen? What was I thinking? And what was I feeling in the moment? And then what I was thinking and what I was thinking drove me to make the decision that I made. And then what was the result? Do I still want this result? Okay, well, the result isn't something that just happened to me. If I'm going to take full responsibility for my life and what's happening and the results that I get, I'm going to have to accept that my thoughts and my feelings drove my decision making, my behavior, and got the results that I wanted. And then we have to be able to assess, do I want to keep this thinking around? Do I want to keep on reacting to that emotion? And this is going to come in subsequent 15-minute masteries. But most times when people get results that they don't want, it's because they're having an emotion that they don't really know how to handle very well. And they don't want to feel the emotion. And so they're going to try to get away from it, or they're going to try to change their outer world to change their inner world. And the emotion's happening on the inner world. It's not happening out there. Emotion's happening in here. And most people mistakenly believe that something out there caused what's happening in here, caused the emotion. The reality is my assessment of what's happening out there, my perception of what's happening out there caused what's happening in here.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, that's about as much as I probably want to share today, because we're almost out of time. Any questions?
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Very deep stuff. I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah. You've always impressed me as a very deep person, and you're not disappointing on this stuff.
Thank you.
Good deep dives.
So next time we'll talk about, okay, there's an emotion that I consistently react to instead of respond to. For a lot of people, it's embarrassment. I don't want to feel embarrassed. And so I do a lot of things to try to control my life so I don't ever have to feel embarrassed.
Okay.
And that causes, if you look at the pattern, it will often cause a result that you don't want. And then you end up having to feel embarrassed anyway. That's the irony. When we're trying to control out there so I don't ever have to feel embarrassed, we inadvertently cause circumstances in which we'll have to feel embarrassed anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I teach people how to experience embarrassment differently, or interact with the feeling of embarrassment differently, so that we're not afraid of it. And so we're willing to. So that'll be in subsequent 15-minute masteries. And of course, as always, if anybody listening or watching has liked what you've heard, you can always go to my website, maryandrew.com, and schedule a 1-hour consultation. And the gift on that consultation is clarity on what's going on in your life and exactly why it's happening and how you can get different results. So thanks for coming.
Very good.